Jesse and I met online. It was as if I'd found my soulmate. And I hated knowing that someone I felt so connected to I could never really be with.
Wait, I thought you said you weren't gay.
I'm not.
You kiss like you, right?
I don't know what I am.
I think you're confused. I've been around straight women before, and I know this ends badly.
Danny was the kind of woman that women aspired to be. It took everything not to tell her how I felt.
What are you doing? What you're too afraid to?
It took me a year to build up the courage to ask Annika out. And the second I did, disaster.
You really like me.
I think you're amazing.
Her name was Sarah. She hired me for in-house visits, and there was something about her that it drew me in. It was the softness of her skin, the warmness of her heart. Sometimes that's all we ever get. Just one perfect afternoon.
Danny was the kind of woman that women aspired to be. Worldly, sophisticated, feminine, and she was mine. Or so I imagined.
You okay?
It took everything not to tell her how I felt, but I couldn't. I worked as her live-in assistant, and crossing that line would have been sabotage. She was the one that had to do it.
Hey, wanna have sex?
What?
Did you mail those checks?
Oh, yeah. I kept hoping for that moment. The moment when my fantasies were no longer imagined, but real.
Thanks.
Yeah.
In A Lesbian Romance 2, Scene 2, featuring Danny and Karla, deepens the film's overarching meditation on longing, power, and emotional visibility by situating queer desire within a professional hierarchy that both intensifies and constrains feeling, offering a portrait of attraction shaped less by overt action than by restraint, imagination, and the ache of proximity. As Danny's narration frames Karla as the kind of woman women aspire to be, worldly, sophisticated, effortlessly feminine, not merely as an object of admiration, but as a symbol of a life that seems fully inhabited, confident, and self-possessed. A figure whose presence reorganizes the emotional atmosphere of every room she enters. And this framing immediately situates the story within a familiar queer dynamic, in which admiration shades into desire long before it is acknowledged, especially when the admirer occupies a position of less social or professional power. Danny's role as a live-in assistant is crucial here, not simply as a plot device, but as a metaphor for the way queer women are often positioned close to what they want, while being told, explicitly or implicitly, that wanting is dangerous, inappropriate, or destabilizing, and Danny's internal conflict about crossing that line is portrayed not as prudishness, but as self-preservation, an awareness that in a world already skeptical of queer women's professionalism and emotional boundaries, one misstep could be framed as sabotage rather than vulnerability. The film treats this awareness with seriousness, honoring the intelligence required to navigate desire under unequal conditions, and in doing so it speaks to many queer viewers who have learned to read rooms carefully, to weigh the cost of honesty against the risk of erasure or punishment. Karla, meanwhile, is not depicted as an oblivious authority figure, but as someone whose gestures carry weight precisely because they are ambiguous, whose casual generosity, giving a gift, offering praise, sharing space, becomes charged not because of intent alone, but because of context. And the moment when Danny receives the gift operates as a narrative hinge, not because of its material nature, but because it punctures the protective fantasy Danny has built around unattainability, introducing the destabilizing possibility that the connection she has carefully contained might be reciprocated. The film is careful to linger in Danny's uncertainty, allowing her to question whether she has misread everything, whether the gesture is merely kind rather than meaningful. And this hesitation resonates deeply with queer women accustomed to second-guessing their perceptions, trained by social narratives that insist intimacy between women is either platonic or performative, rarely romantic unless explicitly declared. What makes this scene emotionally grounded is its refusal to rush resolution, instead dwelling in the space where hope and fear coexist, where desire is sustained by waiting rather than gratification. And Danny's reflection on the beauty of the unattainable captures a paradox at the heart of queer longing. That fantasy can be both a refuge and a trap, offering safety through imagination while postponing the risks of reality. Yet the film does not romanticize repression for its own sake, as Danny's yearning is portrayed as something that deserves acknowledgement. And the eventual shift, when life moves from imagined to real, is framed not as conquest but as alignment, a moment when internal truth is allowed to surface. Across the film's 4 stories, Scene 2 contributes a vital perspective on how power complicates authenticity, reminding viewers that not all silences are born of shame and not all hesitation signals confusion. And for women watching, queer or otherwise, this story may echo experiences of loving someone who holds institutional authority, emotional security, or social capital, and the careful calculus required to protect oneself while still honoring feeling society's discomfort with. Seeing women express love for each other is amplified in scenarios like this, where desire disrupts not only heterosexual norms but also professional boundaries. And the persistence of this discomfort can be traced to a broader unease with women's autonomy, particularly when it manifests as attraction that cannot be easily controlled or categorized. By presenting Danny's longing as thoughtful rather than reckless and Karla's presence as influential rather than predatory, the film resists reductive narratives that paint queer desire in hierarchical contexts as inherently transgressive or exploitative, instead inviting viewers to consider how structures of power shape emotional expression without negating its sincerity. Symbolically, Danny represents the internalized voice of caution, the part of many women that has learned to survive by minimizing need, while Karla embodies possibility itself, not simply as an individual, but as a reflection of what it might mean to be seen, chosen, and valued. Without apology, their interaction mirrors real-world pressures on queer women to justify their feelings, to prove that attraction is not a threat, and to navigate desire with an extra layer of self-scrutiny that heterosexual narratives rarely demand. When Danny speaks of waiting for Karla to make a move, the film subtly critiques the expectation that queer women must always be reactive rather than initiatory, yet it also acknowledges the reality that safety often dictates who is allowed to act and when. In the context of A Lesbian Romance 2 as a whole, Scene 2 complements the other stories by illustrating a different facet of becoming visible, not through sudden self-discovery but through sustained attention to one's inner life, through the courage to recognize when fantasy has begun to ask for embodiment. For LGBTQ+ audiences seeking authenticity, this scene offers validation of slow-burn desire, of attraction that unfolds in glances and pauses rather than declarations, and for women more broadly, it speaks to the universal experience of wanting something that feels just out of reach and learning to discern whether that distance is protective or limiting. By keeping its focus on emotional stakes rather than spectacle, the film challenges viewers to reconsider what constitutes romance on screen, arguing that the most radical act may simply be allowing women's feelings for each other to be taken seriously, without sensationalism or dismissal. And in doing so, A Lesbian Romance 2 affirms that truth, connection, and visibility are not found only in dramatic confession, but also in the quiet, courageous decision to acknowledge that what once felt unattainable may, with care and honesty, become real.